Hi, and welcome to this new episode of Breakfast with Max in the light and love and light of the one creator. Um, I'm very happy to have you here today for your first meal of the day, or as I like to say, for your first meal after awakening, which is finding yourself, discovering yourself, which is the real reason you are here. There is no other reason. You think becoming rich is really a goal? Becoming famous is really a goal? That will fulfill you spiritually, your soul? No, it will not. And you can tell you lies about that. You can tell you whatever you want about that. It's just for fun. It's a way to discover yourself, but not a achievement. There are no achievements actually, but anyway. So welcome here, and let's work on your awakening, or our awakening, or on my awakening. So, mhm. What about today, this episode? So, I decided to do this because I was just talking by myself, and I thought to myself, well, it's a good thing, so let's do it on camera so that I can share this and really put it there so that I can remember. Well, as you can see, it's not perfect yet, but here you go. Yeah, I have light. Now I have to just have two of them, and I think I have the screen behind me, and then we'll be set up. But so yesterday I had an amazing, really very fulfilling and full information session with Roxanne that once again changed a lot of things. But hey, change is the only constant in the universe. So here we are. And as always, remember, change is the only constant in the universe except for the first four laws. The first four laws are you exist here and now. So here and now. It's here and now. What you put out is what you get. The all is one and the one is all. So that change is the only constant. So I'm changing here and now, but especially in the new here and now. So you're not the same. Your vibration changes from one moment to another moment. So yeah, there is a lot of changing. And I'm really very excited about this, about everything that's going to happen. Because, yeah, so many things, so many changes, and all of these seem to be completely related to everything. So, I mean, if you pay attention to everything that happens to you in your life, they are related. The day before the session, I sent Roxanne 4 words. Wings, feather, flight, flying, and angel. But the correct list is wings, flying, flying, flight, flying, feather, and angel. Angel is a final word on coming from the first ones, the previous ones. So wings come from the fact that I feel wings, or I have the feeling of having wings. Obviously, I don't have wings in this incarnation because, well, I'm a earthling, a human being, and human beings don't have physically wings. And then that has everything to do with flying, being able to fly. And then there is feathers, and angel. So we did our session, and it turns out that wings and flying are related directly to the blue avians. And I'm recording this. I'm going to do this afterwards, but I wanted to record this before I go back watching again the session. I purposely am doing this recording before watching again. So it was really interesting because the process is also showing me how I am changing, relating with my discovering of myself, in building up my trust in myself, my ability to listen to the words that comes to me, and the ability to form them, to express them in words. And I've noticed during the session how my process is that I'm belief system. My belief system tend to push me to first form the words in my head before expressing them, and that doesn't work because I'm trying to create a word out of nothing, and it doesn't work. So my understanding is that it has to come out by itself, not built in my head, but spontaneously, which is not spontaneous, but to me it seems to be spontaneously coming out. Because when I try to form the word in my head, that is the ego trying to analyze, trying to make it real, to have something to build upon. But the ego is not a good filter of anything, because the ego is separation, the ego is confusion. That's why the ego exists. I mean, if you want to analyze it that way, the ego is your separation from your whole self, the illusion of separation, because there is no separation. So that when you go through that filter, you have what? You have confusion, you have separation. I mean, you can have anything else. That's the reason the ego is. Hmm? So I allowed myself to not go through that, but to go through, to allow myself to trust myself and to let it go, which is difficult because let's be clear, and this is not something that is just about me, it's something that is about all of us. We are, we grow up with this fact that we destroy our confidence in ourselves. We are built up that we are looking for validation in the outside. So that validation is through the uh, education system, through um, through society, through science. Science, we always relate to science, so that, you know, everything that comes from the spiritual world, that comes from the multidimensional universe, we are not able to trust that because we are told, oh no, if it's not physical and if it's not 100% proven by science, it cannot exist, which is really stupid, actually. But that's the way we are built. And that's wrong. Because what? In the law one, Ra says that we are creating through separation, through confusion. And that's our reality. That means that you cannot have proofs. You can demand proofs, you will not get them because your ego is there, because your reality is built on confusion and separation. That's an illusion, but that's how it is. So that you cannot have proofs. Science, it's bullshit. That's why it doesn't work. That's why you have people coming out saying, I discovered a planet. No, you didn't discover a planet. The planet was there to begin with. You just put it in a map, a sky map, whatever, but you didn't discover it. And that's what science is made of. People believing that they discovered anything, forgetting that they are creating their reality, which means that whatever they discover, it's their creation. And that by being creators, they can create anything. So their discovering is their creation. And of course it works, they creating it. And they use the word discovering. The only thing they are discovering is themselves, but certainly not science. Everything is related to your creation. You are a creator, so you recreate your reality. So everything that happens in your reality is your creation. So when you are doing any scientific test for discovering anything scientific, you're just creating. Science is bullshit, doesn't exist. It's creation. It's nothing else but creation. Then yeah, of course. You are the all is one, the one is all, we are all connecting, therefore you are able to translate in our reality truth that are known by the collective, because in the end of the day we are members, we are or a collective. We experience being a singularity, being a separation, being a personality. That's our experience. But we were never that. We are not that. We are all. We are the all. We are one part of the all. So that everything that is known by the collective is known by the one. So you discover nothing. There is no science because there is nothing to be discovered to begin with. Everything is already known. So, and then our beliefs in science makes that, and the belief in science is that everything has to be proven. So that when we come to the fact, to these things, that, oh, well, multidimensional, oh, spirits, oh, channeling, or prove it. There are no proofs, and you will never have proofs. This is the reality. Or I should phrase it this way: you will not have scientific proofs, proofs that are based on data that allow you to say, I'm 100% sure this theory is correct. Well, but you have proofs. In fact, you have proof, and you are proof. You have your proofs inside of yourself. If you want, or if you give yourself the opportunity to explore yourself, and therefore the proof that you have. As I said, you are part of a collective. The all is one, and the one is all. So in your accessing your heart chakra, in your accessing yourself, you can access to the information. But I know you're not able to do, but that's what I'm talking about. My experience of going there and overcoming the education that we receive, and that teaches us to not trust ourselves, because the answer comes from science, from proofs, from whatever that gives 100% certainty that that is true. But that never happens. But in the same time, you cannot deny that certain things are happening. Miracles. Anyway, so building up my confidence means that I have to overcome this belief system, because the ego is a belief system. Science is a belief system. So that when you try to be more into the spiritual world, the spirituality, the unknown, taking another path than what is mainstream, there is all these belief systems that you have to let behind yourself, and that is not easy, which means that we have to build our trust in ourselves that we are not losing it. And I've I tend to say that I'm open-minded and that I'm able to, but I realize that um, still you have work to do in order to um, build yourself up to that standard, up to that point where you have that trust that everything is able to come out of you, that you are able to listen to those things that are coming from the wall. And so during the session, and when I started the sessions, I with Roxanne, I just was really hard to work on that and to be able to trust myself to give the answer, overcoming the fear of failing, of saying something that is wrong, of uh, of whatever, and going into the fact of saying, well, you know what, trust it, put it out there, and you'll build from there. And if you do that, you realize that there is a result that um, maybe it's not exactly what was asked, but it's related to it. Because remember that channeling mm, and and it's all of that. It's interpretation. It's filtered because you have the source material and then you have you and your ego. So the source material has to go through your perception before you materialize it and you express it, so that you give an interpretation of that. You read it the way you are able to read it as a human, because you remain a human. And from what I've read of first experience and what I've been seeing through all these channels that I've been watching and listening to, um, that is absolutely true. And when you look to a channeler, the way he works, it's absolutely very interesting, because if you pay close attention, you can see the switch of personality, the change of personality, but you still can see that something of the human is still there. The voice changes, but you can see that uh, something remains, and the channeler is always there somewhere, so that you know that it's not a personality that takes over and possesses. It's not possession, but it's a coming together, a co-creation. It becomes that. It cannot be in any other way. It's a co-creation, so that it goes through a filter. And I'm reading at the moment, I'm reading this Seth material from Jane Robbins, and it's absolutely fascinating. It's not to be clear, it's not Seth Speaks, which is the book that Seth wrote through Jane Robbins. This is Jane Robbins. The book I'm reading is Jane Robbins giving her impressions, the way she felt through all the process of starting discovering Seth coming through her, and then building up her trust, and then being able to improve her abilities uh, thanks to her connection with Seth. And that is exactly what I'm talking about also today, that building up trust. And she spent the first year testing Seth, testing herself. In reality, she couldn't test Seth, she was testing herself, because she needed to believe that she was not crazy, and that Seth was not a subconscious personality of hers. So they tested during 1 year before she was comfortable enough to tell herself, okay, this is true. But during all that time, and she hated it, because I think, but this is speculation from me, but I think that underneath all those doubts, all that need of scientific proofs, she knew that wasting she was not wasting her time, that's not what I mean, but she knew that those tests were not necessary. But there, you see, you have various different ways of perception in your personality, and what is built up through our education and through our belief systems is this lack of trust in ourselves, in our perception. Her perception told her this is true, but her ego, her link to the material world, and it was 1965. Don't forget that that was the medieval time. We believe that we were evolving. No, there is only here and now, and at that here and now, it was medieval time. People were still very disconnection. Awakening was even not on the map at that time. 1965 is from here now is just another word, which is it is, but as our construct was back then, the place we were back then, it's a marvel that she was able to channel the way she was able to do it, because it was not in the time. Things were happening, yes, but as a global consciousness, awakening was not yet happening on a global scale. So that she needed those tests to reassure herself, because all those tests, all that year, and Seth allowed it to happen, because Seth knew that that was the only way to build up her confidence and being able to go through it, because Seth, as a channel being, knows very well that the channel is as important, and that he has to have a as pure channel as he can in order to pass through with his message. So Jane had to be entrusted, or to be able to trust herself. She didn't need to trust Seth. to be able to channel him, she needed to trust herself so that the channel could be the best channel possible. And she needed that ear with all those tests that she and her husband created, even though she hated it. Because this is the reality. She hated the test. She was fed up with the test. But she went through them 1 year, and for her, that was a very long experience, a very long time that she allowed herself to do the test. If it was just for her, she would have stopped the test much, much earlier, I guess. And as I said, it's a position by myself, but from myself. But I think I understand that from what she writes. And that was a necessity for her, and in the same time as such a pain. But hey, that's what it was. 1965, as I said. No, 1963, 4. I just was reading about 1965, so that's why I said 1965. But well, that's around there. And I was born in 75, just 10 years, about 10 years after they started those with SED. So I remember those times because 1975 was not that different in the construct. If we have to put a changing in the in our global consciousness, it will be in the late 90s, late 90s, been up to the 2000s, that it switched. But before that, it was really dark ages. Collectively, I'm saying. Doesn't mean that nothing was happening. It means that collectively we were really close to awakening. We're not there. But it's a build up. So all of this for saying I am there. I am building up my confidence. And I can see what Jane did as a waste of time, because I know what I know now, but from the point of view of it's necessary, because building her confidence was everything. And I'm experiencing the same, but in another way. I don't need the confidence of believing that what is happening is true. I believe it. And I believe it in the sense that, as I have already said, when I started to watch Gaia TV and to see even David Wilcox and then Corey Good talking about the secret space program, Blue Haven, and all these things, and conspiracies, and Area 51, and etc., etc. I knew that something behind that was at least true. I'm not saying all about the conspiracies, but at least the aspect of Corey Good being legitimate. I knew he is legitimate, because when he was giving information from the spiritual point of view, everything he was saying was known by me. I knew that that was true, so that he was not a fraud. He was not a liar. He was not inventing the aspect of the spirituality. So I know when, and when trust goes, well, I'm able to know that I'm not uh, into something that, because what what I'm told, I'm able to know if it's true or not, if it's based on truth, on reality, or what I don't know how to put it, because the information exists. I have the information. Sometimes I just have to be reminded, sometimes I have to, but the information, as I said before, the information, we are all one. So the collective knows all there is to be known, then it's a fact of being able to access to it. So I'm able to compare what is said with what I know. And um, let me make an example. For instance, um, I know, and I have known it for years now, that time doesn't exist. I have not been able to explore all the meanings of it, but I was able to know it. I knew it, and then, well, I had at the time already been reading, or I was reading Seth Speaks. So, but I was able by myself to determine that time doesn't exist. It means everything happens at the same time all over the universe. This, I came up with this by myself, which means that I had the information from the collective, let's say, and I was able to express it. So when I am confronted with someone that is able, if not to understand the meaning of that, at least to express it as a knowledge, I know they are based on something correct, but at the same time, I know when they are bullshitting. For instance, I had David Wilcox saying that Ganesh, okay, this is Ganesh, the elephant god. There. David Wilcox, speaking of the gods, if we know that the gods that we have, all these gods are originated from our connections with extra dimensional beings that were coming to Earth, and we as humans seeing these beings that are extra dimensional, so expressing themselves through their abilities that for us as third dimensional beings are extra ordinary or wonders or whatever. So we call them gods. And for us, from our point of view of third dimensional beings, they are gods. What we have forgotten that is that we are gods too, because they are what? They are the, let's say, evolution, but you are not evolved there yet. So for us, they are gods. As I said, we are too, but we have forgotten. So he was talking about the origin of Ganesh, and he said that Ganesh probably originated from a species or a population that has a specific face that has probably a nose that is. And as I was hearing that, I knew that's bullshit. I said, no, that's not the origin of Ganesh. Sorry. Sorry, David. That's bullshit. You know nothing about that. Which also proves that when it comes from people like him, there is their scientific proofs that they are able to collect And when they base what they say to their scientific proofs is one thing, then, but when they try to improvise their knowledge, they are unable, because they are absolutely ego, totally ego. And when it comes to take out the information spontaneously, they are absolutely unable to do that. So, I'm able to make the difference between what is a good information, a good thing, and what is something that is not working, and something that. So I'm able also to see when I'm confronted with someone, to relate to what I know, to know how far they go, and the trust I can build upon that. Which brings me to the fact that my trust in myself also needs to be built in the sense of seeing myself as equal. We are also told and taught to feel inferior. Inferior to other beings, inferior to other people, inferiority is something that is taught early on. You're inferior to your parents, you're inferior to your teachers, you are inferior to your chief, whatever. And so you build that up like that. So there is this fact of saying you're not inferior, you're equal. And by equal, I'm not talking about this leftish bullshit of equality. I'm talking about our collective, where all beings that come from the same place. So that's the equality, or the equal standard. We are all equal beings in existence. We are not the same. We are not equality in that sense of left point of view, that there shouldn't be differences. That's bullshit. You create your reality, so you create it the way you intend to create it. So there is no equality in that, because you create yourself as you perceive it, based on your beliefs. So all that is politics is bullshit. Anyway, so and take it, also that is a belief system. So it's taking away all those belief systems, and just believing in yourself. That is the base of everything. Believe, believe, believe. Trust yourself. Trust, trust, trust. And this is something that will come out again and again. And probably at some point it will just be trust, be. And trust will not be even an issue, because at that point you are trust is you, and you don't have to push it, you don't have to trust yourself, you just are. And that is the evolution, not just in trust, the evolution in everything, because you have to know yourself. And once you know yourself, as you don't need to know, because you are. And that is something that is very well explained by beings, extra dimensional beings, that are channeled. When they are asked about certain things, they say, I don't know that. I have always been, so I don't know separation. I am. I don't know God. That's a good example. God. We in their dimension, we say, what? You are what? You are a creator, a God. Yes, We say it because we are built on what? On separation, in confusion, or delusion of those things, so that we have to rediscover we are gods that forgot being gods. We have to remember being gods. When you are in 4th, 5th, 7th, 12th dimension, you don't know you are God, because you are God. You have always been God. You don't have to remember. You just are. And that is the huge difference between our dimension, where we have to remember. So we have to perceive ourselves as gods in order to remember that we are. But we are not gods. The concept of God is only third dimensional. We only are. So when we encounter beings from other dimensions, we see them as, let's say, superior, or hello? Okay. But they don't see themselves as that, because they are. They simply are, and they only are. So you see, that's also what builds up our being. We come from a situation where in 1965 Jane Robbins had to prove to herself that she was not insane. Now, in my here and now, in 2019, I'm able not to be in a situation when I'm thinking I'm crazy, or the way I think I'm crazy, it's really much less than what she was thinking in 1965, due to the, you know, the way we perceive us as a collective, the place we are as a collective here and now. It's different from 1965, so that I don't need to build up my confidence from a point of view of being crazy and proving not being crazy, but I have to build it up from a point of view of lack of confidence, a lack of say, I'm able to do it. That's the lack. And to build up myself in the knowledge or the position of saying, oh well, it's I'm 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 a creator, I'm God, I'm limitless. That's not a big deal. Yes, but you see, that's what it's meant, what every channel being tells us. You have to awaken to yourself. You have to discover yourself as God, because you have forgotten it. So you have to remember it and to rediscover it. So you are discovering yourself through your experiences. You are rediscovered. That's what you are discovering. You are discovering yourself as gods. And a God doesn't think. That's what I was saying before. When I have this need of being of expressing a knowledge that I have, and I'm trying to have it put in words, my first movement is to have it built in my head. But here's the thing, is that gods do not think. Thinking is the ego. So this is really very important to make the difference. When you are able to make the difference and you know where the ego is and how the ego acts, you are able to see when you are acting in that way and when you are not acting that way, so that you are able to build up from there. And so when I'm in that position that I'm creating a thought, I know that that is not the answer. I cannot have the answer. I can if it's if there is a question of but I mean, I'm not expressing through the thought, I'm not expressing what I need to express. So I have to be able not to think and to let it come over spontaneously, what seems to be spontaneous. So you see, through all these I've been able to compare myself in the beginning of the sessions with what was the previous session I had yesterday, and see how building up trust is so important, because in the moment you are able to express trust through yourself, being trust, so that trust comes natural. You are able to have the information coming out of you without struggle, because we have the thing that we think that um, you have to struggle to be able to have your potential expressed, and you see these people, oh no, you've got, you don't struggle, you don't even think, you just act, you don't need all that. It's just to say that things, the struggle you have, if you want, is more ego. So the way you keep your ego into check, because when your ego is into check, the information comes out spontaneously. So yeah, these were my impressions today. As I said, I wanted to do this before listening again, watching again the session, and being able to go more deeply into the information that I have received through the session, and go further. So well, thank you, and a lot of love to you, and be blessed in the love and light of the one Creator. Bye.